There's the R word, recession. When people hear that, it gives them anxiety, fear, panic, makes people scared because you think of layoffs, companies going down. A couple things that I want to mention regarding that is the majority of people are very scared of slowdowns in the economy, slowdowns in the markets. However, for the minority of people, recessions, crashes are opportunity to build wealth. You can think of it almost like Black Friday for investors. So the first point that I want to make regarding that is some people will use slowdowns as an opportunity to build immense amounts of wealth. More millionaires are made during recessions than any other time. You want to find the opportunity. And the way that you find the opportunity is first to understand how you get there, because history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And so what happens is people say, oh, this happened in 2020, so it must happen again. Or this happened in 2008, so this is probably going to happen. Or this happened in 2001. That's not how it works. You have to understand how you're getting to where you are right now. That way you can look for the new opportunity, because the opportunity is going to be similar but different. And you want to be ready when times are okay and good and prepared. That way when things go bad, you can come in and pounce on the opportunity and take advantage of it.
Need motivation?
Watch a Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because you are probably the most ambitious person in your circle.
But you know you're capable of more.
And you get that push by surrounding yourself with the best.
So today, let's learn from one of the best, Jaspreet Singh, and my take on his top 10 rules of success. Enjoy. Rule number 2, think differently.
I didn't grow up learning about money. I didn't grow up learning about financial education. I didn't grow up learning about investing. I didn't grow up learning about any sort of wealth. My parents are immigrants from a state in India called Punjab, like I was saying before. And in my household, success meant go to school, get good grades, get a good job. And for me, that good job was I had to become a doctor. I was actually given two options: become a doctor, become a failure. I could choose.
They let you choose.
They let me choose, right? And so I saw how hard they worked. For my dad, if he had a Saturday and a Sunday off, that was considered a long weekend. And so, you know, I wanted to give back to my parents. I knew I wanted to become successful. They wanted me to become successful. And so I kind of followed that path, like doing what everybody says, following the system, trusting the system, right? And it just didn't make sense to me, because on one hand, in my house, money was a taboo topic. You don't talk about money. You don't worry about money. You don't, it's a bad thing. But at the same time, I see how hard my parents are working to get paid, you know, to pay for our lives. Now, we were fortunate. I never had to worry about my next meal. We were never poor or anything like that. But I saw how hard they worked. And it wasn't until I got to college until I realized something isn't adding up, because I was actually studying to become a doctor. I was taking the medical college admission test, the MCAT. And as I'm studying for this test, I started doing a couple things. First, I started reading business books because I was just interested by this. That was the first. English is my second language, so I never grew up reading books in you know, my grade school years. Even English class, I almost failed my English class in, I think it was middle school, because I just didn't understand how to write papers or do all that. But as soon as I started reading business books, I started reading them for fun because I was interested by it. And then I started going on to Google, and I started researching just random things, from things like the richest people in America. And, you know, you see like Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg. I don't even know if he was on it back then, but you had a bunch of people who none of them were doctors. None of them went down that traditional path. And I was like, wait, I thought that grades correlated linearly with income. Like if I got better grades, my income would directly correlate with that. So that was like my first, like, wait, is something wrong here? Was something like, it just wasn't adding up. And that's when I started to dig a little bit deeper. And it's talked about wealthy people investing in real estate. Now, I had no idea what that meant, because I didn't know any real estate investors. I didn't even know what real investing was. I didn't grow up around investors. And it said, however, the wealthy people invest in real estate. And this was right after the 2008 crash. I didn't know what was normal in real estate. To me, this is all I knew, because now this is the first time I'm looking at real estate prices. And I said, oh, I've been running this event planning company kind of as a side hustle, because, you know, I wanted to become successful. However, my parents didn't want me to do anything except study, because to them, if it's not related to biology or math, it's a distraction. Even like playing football was a distraction. Doing all these things that were not related to becoming a doctor is just a distraction. So I always had this entrepreneurial bug, but I always kind of did it in secret, because it was never like allowed. So in high school, I worked at weddings and I got to meet a lot of the Indian DJs. And one of them, or a couple of them, had this idea to host teen parties for kids in my high school. Well, I was like, yeah, why not? We got to meet one of these little local Indian restaurant owners, and they were like, yeah, why don't you throw parties here for free? You can charge cover, do whatever you want. We want the exposure. So I kind of did this in secret. Now I'm in high school, hosting these little teen parties, became this little event promoter. Didn't make that much money, but it was a little hobby that I started. And then I go to college, I'm 17. I don't know what college is like, or supposed to be like in America. And I go there thinking everybody's gonna be spending Friday nights in the chemistry lab studying. And I get there and everybody is partying, drinking. I'm like, none of you guys have any money. How do you afford all these, like this lifestyle? And I was like, I need something to do on Friday nights. So that's when I brought this event planning company to college, again, in secret. My parents didn't know I was doing this. And I'm 17, and I was like, well, let's try this. So I started knocking on the doors of clubs, venues, bars, restaurants, trying to find a place that will let me do it, that's not gonna charge me a lot of money, or really any money, because I don't have the money to put a deposit down for a fancy venue. And I found a venue that was like, yeah, you can do it here. We're not gonna charge you a penny, just give us half of your cover charge. I was like, all right, cool. It's not gonna cost me a penny. And I talked to my DJ friends and they were willing to do it. They split the revenue with me. So I only made 25% of the revenue. 50% went to the club, 25% went to the DJ, 25% went to me to put everything together. But it was a start. And I started doing that in college.
Rule number 3, don't go broke just trying to look rich.
We're in a spending culture. America has a consumerism culture, and I joke about this, but the way I like to say it is traditionally Indian people make $1 to spend 20 cents. American people make $1 to spend $2.
Yeah.
Thanks to the help of credit minus the credit. Yeah. This is just the culture that we're in, where it's very okay and normalized to spend money even if you can't afford something.
You don't have it.
And what are you doing? Well, you're spending all your money making everybody else around you rich, but you yourself, you might look rich, but you're actually broke. There's a reason why the owner and CEO of Louis Vuitton is the richest person in the world, whereas the majority of people who wear Louis Vuitton are broke. The people who are wearing Louis Vuitton are trying to look rich, and how are you doing that? Well, you're making the owner of Louis Vuitton rich by doing that. And so this is where you got to understand, there's nothing wrong with wearing designer stuff. There's nothing wrong with having nice stuff. There's nothing wrong with wanting nice things, but you have to be able to afford it first. I used to guest teach in Detroit public schools. And when I used to teach there, it's a rough school district. I would talk to the kids about life, motivation and entrepreneurship and money and success. And one of the things that I would ask is, how many of you have a job? Almost all of them raised their hand saying that they had a job. My next follow-up question was, how many of you have a bank account? Nobody raised their hand. So I asked, what do you do with your paycheck? They said, well, we get a physical check, then we go to the liquor store, we get it cashed. The liquor store owner takes 1 to 10%. Then you buy pop, candy, a bunch of junk on the way out. And by the time you're out of the store, you've already given away half of your paycheck. I call it a net zero thinking, where we think in terms of spending. If I have $1,000, I can go out and buy this handbag, this nice thing. If I have 10 grand, I can go on this nice vacation. If I have 50 grand, I can go on and buy this nice car. We think in terms of spending because we think, if I have this money, how can I spend it? Now, if you break away from that and now you start creating a buffer and you don't spend all of your money, the next problem is we save our money. Because for me, the only financial education that I was given was save your money.
Rule number 4, study money.
What is the big thing that you wish everyone knew about money before they started making it?
Oh man, well, it goes back to, I guess, just the basics, because most of us, myself included, are never taught a thing about money. We're told, go to school, get a degree, get a job, and now you figure it out.
Right.
And then what happens for the majority of people is you end up broke, you end up struggling financially, and you can never figure out why. So the first thing is, what is it that you want to achieve in your life financially? And then you have to go out and figure it out yourself, because unfortunately, school will never teach you this stuff.
So you didn't learn this in high school or University of Michigan or
no, never.
Law school? They didn't teach you any of this stuff?
I went through high school, I went through college, I went through 1 year grad school, and then I went through law school, and I never once learned a thing about money. Never once learned a thing about budgeting, never once learned a thing about building wealth, never once learned a thing about investing my money, and never once learned a thing about passive income. Yeah, here I am today with a law degree, and I haven't worked a single day as an attorney.
Why not?
Well, it doesn't make sense for me financially, and it's not my purpose. So, I grew up in a traditional Indian house.
Right. Doctor, lawyer.
Well, for me, I had two options: doctor or failure. Those are the two options that I had.
Right.
My parents are immigrants from a state in India called Punjab, and my parents came to the country with very little. And so, I saw my parents work their butt off every single day. If my dad got a Saturday and a Sunday off, it was considered a long weekend. And so I didn't get to spend a lot of time with my parents growing up, and they would always tell me that, you have to go out and become successful. And I completely agreed, because I wanted to give back to my parents. I wanted to help support them. And I figured, okay, if I want to become successful, I should follow the steps that we're told to become successful. What are those steps? Go to school, get a good degree, get a good job. For me, in my case, it was become a doctor. And along that way, it was in college, I realized that something's wrong. Something's not adding up. And it actually happened. I was studying to get into medical school. And as I was studying, I started reading other business books and financial books. And I remember this. I was in the library studying, and I went onto Google, and I searched the richest people in America. And you see people like Steve Jobs, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. And I was like, none of these people are doctors. None of these people went down that traditional route of, getting a degree, doing a good job. Am I missing something? Because I thought that if you go to school, get a good degree, you can make a lot of money. And if you work harder in school, get better grades, you'll make even more money. So I thought it was just directly correlated. Your grades, your income. And that's when I started questioning things. And I realized, maybe this isn't right. And as you start to go down deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole, you start to realize, oh my God, everything that I've been told is a lie. And so that kind of pushed me into this whole painful, emotional journey of learning about money, learning about entrepreneurship, learning about what does it mean to become wealthy and how do you actually do it.
Right.
So that was kind of the initial phase for me, and then I had to go out and actually start learning it.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there. Rule number 5, work hard and
Smart.
My parents came to this country with next to nothing. So I got nothing to lose and everything to gain, right? And so this is the place where that opportunity exists. But now you have to be willing to work hard. But you also have to be willing to work smart. I can't stand when people say work smart, don't work hard. But to me, that's all complete crap.
Because you have to do both?
You have to do both. Because if you're not willing to work hard, your smart working is effectively worthless. You have to be willing to apply both together. And I had none of this, financial education, right? For me, it was, Dad, I want to go invest in real estate. You're stupid, go become a doctor. I had to do all my entrepreneurial stuff in secret. My parents didn't even know that I was doing this business stuff until I was on the news. I was running a different sock company. And this is now, a couple of years after. And we were doing well, and we got featured on the local news. Now, my parents got a call from a family friend. And they said, we saw your son on the news. And my parents were like, oh God, what did he do now? And they're like, no, he has this company, he's doing really well, they're growing. And my dad was like, what? And so now, he sits me down, he's like, what the heck is going on? And that was the first time they were like, okay, you can actually do something with this, right? And it was like, you have to, for me, it was like, I understood what I wanted. I knew that I saw this really, I wanted to achieve success. And I knew I was doing it for good intentions. I knew I didn't have bad intentions with what I wanted to do. But the question was, how do I get there? Because it was like, if I try to convince my parents, it is it's going to be extremely stressful for me. I'm going to stress them out. It's just not going to work. So I'm just going to try to figure it out myself. And if I fail, well, guess what? I'm in school. So I kind of had that backup. But for me, I went to law school as well. The problem was I wasn't the best student in school, in law school particularly. I did well on the bar exam. I loved learning. And so for me, I knew I needed to pass the bar. And so I studied hard and I actually did really well. But in the classes, I was not very good. except for the couple of the business ones because I really enjoyed that. But for me, it was just like, I just need to get the degree. That way I can like be done with this, because I went to law school because my parents found out that I wasn't going to be a doctor. They're like, you got to at least become an attorney to keep pride in the family. And so I was like, all right, well, if I go to law school, I can go to law school part-time. And if I go to law school part-time, I can work on me and my business full-time. So that was my mindset with it. And, you know, but I knew that, yeah, if I graduate law school and things don't work out, I don't even know how I'm going to work as an attorney, because I have no idea. I don't know how to file a lawsuit. I have no idea like what to do. So if I graduate, like I'm going to have to like start all over and figure it out after I'm done. And it used to give me a lot of anxiety, but I was like, you know, this is why I have to figure it out. It was a mission because one, I wanted to give back to my family and myself. And second, I wanted to do it because I wanted to prove a lot of people wrong.
Rule number 6, think like an investor.
I look at home buying very differently than the majority of people. I look at buying a home the way I buy a shirt. For me, a home is not an asset, it's a liability. So what does that mean? I want to buy a home because I want to create memories. I want to buy an investment property or an investment because I want to make money. So if you're buying a home because you think, oh, I want to get rich because of my home, I think you're looking at it the wrong way. Because you should be looking at your home as, I want to make memories here, I want to live here, and I want to grow my family here, and I want to spend time here. If that's the reason why you want to buy a home, what you should be paying attention to is not what's going on in the markets, not what's going on with interest rates, but instead what you should do is say, can I afford it?
Right.
And what does that mean? Can I afford the down payment? Can I afford the monthly payment?
Property taxes.
Can I afford the property tax?
The fix-ups.
The fix-ups, the move-in costs, and then you move in like I need the furniture, the upgrades, all that.
Man.
So if you can afford it, then you buy. If you can't afford it, if you're stretching yourself too thin, you don't buy. Because what happens to so many people is you get sucked into trying to time the market. But again, if interest rates drop and you own a home, you can refinance.
Right.
And so remember, it's understanding.
So it's almost good to buy it when interest rates are high if you can get the house on discount, and then if in a year or two the interest rates drop in half, you can refinance.
Just make sure you can afford it. That's the biggest thing. You have to be able to afford it, because if you are stretching yourself too thin, going paycheck to paycheck to live in a home, you're hurting yourself, because now what you're doing, you don't have the ability to invest in other places. You cannot invest your money.
Do you think people will be able to actually buy a home in 5 to 7 years?
It depends on what the Fed does. If the Fed cuts interest rates when we go into a recession, so our economy slows down, the Fed starts cutting interest rates, mortgage rates go back down, you're going to see a bigger flood of cash into the housing market, and that will create a bigger wealth gap, and it will make it significantly more difficult for the regular person to buy a home. Home ownership will become a real American nightmare, because it will be so difficult for the regular person. We will turn into essentially a renter nation.
Wow.
Where homes are owned not even by regular investors,
by corporations.
Corporations.
Yeah.
They've been buying up. I was reading
Blackstone's been buying up a ton of homes, right?
BlackRock's buying like
BlackRock or Blackstone?
They're buying 1 out of every 4 homes in certain neighborhoods.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, and so
which means they believe people aren't going to be able to afford them, and they're going to have to rent from them.
Yes, and so it's a crazy times to understand that, which is why, again, I look at the home like a liability. Can you afford it? Yes, then buy. If not, then don't stretch yourself too thin. I used to be a real estate salesperson. And the reason why this is so important is because when I was a salesperson, what they say is, you want to tell people this is their biggest investment of their life. So buy a home that you love.
Rule number 7, delay gratification.
The first time I made $1 million in a year, my car was worth $500 that I was driving. I still drive today that $500 car. Just last week, before I came out here to California, my homeowner association called me and they said, hey, Jaspreet, we have a number of complaints about a junk car sitting in your driveway. And this is a true story. They said it's been sitting there, because I was in California for a long time. They said it's been sitting there, and people say that you should take these junk cars and put them in storage. And I was like, well, for your information, it's not a junk car. That is my car that I take to and from work every single day. It doesn't have a bumper on it, but it works. And they were like, well, you have to put it higher or further in the driveway so people don't see it. And I was just like, oh my God, you don't get it. And it's not that I can't go out and buy another car. The way I look at it is, well, if I want to go out and buy a $150,000 car, which I can go out and take this cash and buy a car, or I can take this $150,000 and put it back either into real estate or into stocks or into my business, because that's something that I've been investing heavily in now. I started a company called Market Briefs, which is a financial newsletter company, and we're trying to grow aggressively because I want to make financial news more accessible. Because this is something like I look at the things that were very hard for me to understand. Like CNBC used to be something I used to like watching, but it was just so complex. None of the things made sense. There's just so many things happening. And so now you might watch and say, I want to be better with my money. And so now you start watching the financial news because where do you go next? And then all of a sudden you get hit with all these complex terms and things that don't make any sense. And you turn it off. And so I created Market Briefs as a way to make financial news more accessible and easy to understand. And 2022 was the real first year that we became Market Briefs, an actual company. So I'm like, well, I can take this cash and go out and buy a car, or I can hire more employees. We can buy better software. We can buy better infrastructure. My employees have a better car than I do, but I'm focused on, that long term. I want to build this into something bigger. I want to make it something better. Now I'm going to buy a nice car one day. I'm going to buy a better car. I'm not saying that I won't, but it's that level of, how much are you willing to sacrifice today for something bigger tomorrow? I am not driven by materialistic things. I don't really care about name brand stuff. It doesn't really bother me. I mean, I think it's cool if you like it, but it's just not for me. I buy a lot of my clothes, my suits from India. I get them made for $100. I get them custom made. A lot of my clothes are relatively inexpensive. But for me, it's I enjoy what I do, and I'm driven more by the purpose of I want to help people with the things that I wish I would have had help with. Because the more and more that I have seen growth, the more and more that I talk to people, I keep hearing, I wish I would have learned this sooner. I wish I would have learned this younger. Yeah. And that's where, Minority Mindset, I'm trying to help provide that financial education with my channel and the Market Brief, trying to make that news more accessible for anybody who wants to be aware of what's happening in the real estate market, the stock market, the crypto market, inflation, without being overwhelmed with that sensationalism and the craziness of what happens in the traditional financial news.
Rule number 8, be willing to try.
You have to be willing to just try. When I started Minority Mindset, I didn't have a camera. I didn't have any fancy equipment. I started recording videos off of my phone. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to invest so much money into this when I'm trying to, it's a hobby for me.
Yeah. See where it goes.
See where it goes. And but I did take an acting class. I was in law school. So I was in law school part-time. I was working on my business full-time. And then I took an acting class in the evenings, night school, because I was like, I've never talked in front of a camera before. I'm not even a good public speaker. I don't know how to present myself. I don't even know how to hit the on button on a camera. How am I supposed to do this? So I took an acting class because I was like, well, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to try. So you have to be willing to get uncomfortable, and you have to be willing to take that risk. And this is I don't know if this is gonna offend people or I'm gonna say a bad word, but the reason why I think I've been able to become successful is because I'm stupid. My whole life, I've been told,
you're both, man.
I've been told, Jaspreet, you're stupid. Jaspreet, you're stupid. Why would you want to do that? And you know what? That's the reason why I am where I am today, is because I'm stupid. Because I'm willing to, I never looked at the risk. And you call it stupidity, but for me, I just saw the opportunity as I know I want to achieve something bigger. Because I saw how hard my parents had it. I saw how hard my grandparents had it. My grandparents were refugees. They lost their homes. They lost everything. They had to fight for their lives. And so I saw the things that my family had to go through. My grandparents raised me. They lived with me. So I lived with my grandparents and my parents. So I heard their stories, talked about the struggles, and that was where I started to get my basis of financial education. Because my grandfather would tell me, and he actually repeated this to me a couple of weeks ago when I was on the phone with him, and he was like, the biggest and worst disease is poorness. Because he said, I grew up and I saw extreme poverty. So my family's from a state in India called Punjab. And in 1947, our home, the state of Punjab, was severed by the government. And if you were a Sikh, a member of the religion that I am, and you're on the west side of Punjab, you had to migrate east, otherwise you were going to be killed. So my grandparents were on the west side, and you literally had to run. Like my grandfather, all he had was a clothes on his back and a sword in his hand. And as they were coming across, they got attacked by a mob. And he saw his uncle get his head chopped open right in front of him.
No way.
They had to fight. And so he put his uncle on a horse, and that was the end. And
Holy cow.
He got to the new side of India now, and he's there. He lost his shoes on the way. He has no home, no money, no anything. And so he says, I saw extreme poorness. And when you're in that level of poorness, forget helping other people. You can't even feed yourself. How can you feed your family? If you can't feed your family, you can't feed another hungry person. And so that's what he talks about. What he, and that's what my initial the importance of, because again, they didn't know investing, they didn't know financial education. What he knew was survival. And what he would tell me is work hard, follow the system, and become successful. And that's why I wanted to become successful, because I saw that. Now, I didn't know the right way to do it at the time, but that's what we're all taught, right? We're all taught, go to school, get good grades, get a good job. But there's so much more to it that we're never taught. But that's where my initial, I need to become successful, I need to work hard, was from that learning that basic kind of need.
Rule number 9, avoid emotional investing.
If they keep increasing interest rates to fight inflation, we are going to enter a recession. And that means the economy will slow down. It means people will lose their jobs. It means that businesses will go under. And the question then is, what will the Federal Reserve Bank do next? Will they then say, okay, inflation is under control, even though maybe it's not, but the economy needs help, so we're going to start inflating? Because that's what happened in every previous crash. You cut interest rates and you print money to help the economy boost. Well, if they do that now, when we entered a recession because of inflation, you make the root cause of the recession even worse. So this is where I don't know what the Fed is going to do. And it is a tough situation. And this is where you want to be aware, because there are ways for you to take advantage of this. But what you want to understand is the lesser of two evils is to cause a recession. Because then means you're raising interest rates, markets go down, and some businesses will go under. However, this will cause a refresh and things will be able to get better. This creates opportunity for you to go and buy some assets. You can find stocks that are on sale. You can potentially find some cryptocurrencies on sale. Maybe real estate, you'll find better opportunities. However, if the Federal Reserve Bank changes course and they say, okay, inflation is a little bit better than where it was and it's stabilizing, even though it's much higher than what it was before, but we're worried about this recession, and they start inflating, meaning they start printing money, they start cutting interest rates. Well, that means now the inflation gets worse, and now you risk something like a currency crisis. And this is significantly worse because now the trust and the value of the dollar goes down. And that's where, the type of assets that you want are different. That's where things like physical gold become more valuable, because that can protect you from those types of things. So now what do you do, right? That's the real question is, first thing is calm yourself, because nobody makes rational decisions out of panic. Nobody makes smart decisions out of fear. Understand that these things happen and that things will be okay. So first thing you got to do is just calm yourself, take a deep breath. Now, the second thing is you have to start taking that financial education. You want to create that buffer now, because even now, while things look bad, gas prices are high, but they could be worse. So you want to use this time to now put aside some cash. That way you have some money to take advantage of opportunities that might come your way. Now, the next thing is looking for what type of opportunities do you want? Do you want to invest in stocks? Do you want to invest in real estate? Do you want to invest in cryptocurrency or multiple of things? Once you know what you want to invest in, you make a list. You make a list of the things that you want to own, and now you're just waiting for a good buying opportunity. And when you're waiting for a good buying opportunity, you do not want to try to perfectly time the market. Buy things in phases. You can buy on the way down. You don't have to buy all at once. This is what I talked about in 2020 when the market was collapsing. I said, look, I'm buying in phases. I know what I want to buy. I'm buying it on the way down. Every time it drops another 10 to 15%, I buy more, and I buy more aggressively. When that happens, people will think you lost your mind, because they're going to say, why would you buy now? The market's collapsing. The world's going to end. Don't buy now. Look, you got to, again, calm. There's going to be a lot of emotion. There's going to be a lot of panic, a lot of fear. But the smartest investors are not the ones that invest on emotion. It's the ones that invest on finances. And so cut through that noise, just understand what you want to buy, look for a good buying opportunity, and then understand that if we go the other way, where we start inflating, well, then you could see the opposite happen. You could see asset prices crash upwards, because now we're inflating, we're printing more money, And that can mean more money flows into the markets, and that can push asset prices upwards. So it's knowing what you want to buy. And in those situations, that's where things like gold can also be valuable. Now, the one thing that I want to mention about gold is I don't look at gold like an investment. For me, it's just an alternative form of savings. It's just hard money. It's
holding it.
It's just holding something like that. It's another way to save money. So it's just finding the right opportunity. But at the end of the day, the number one best investment that you can make in any situation is investing in yourself. And understanding what is the most important thing right now: your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your financial health, and understanding that, you know, there's always going to be opportunities to take care of yourself in all of these places, but you need to be prepared. And, you know, you put in that work now, that way you can find the best opportunities, that way you can take advantage of them. Because like I said earlier, the most millionaires are made during recessions and crashes than any other time.
Yeah.
But this means you have to think differently than the majority of people. Going back to why I call it the minority mindset. It's not about the way you look or your ethnicity or your skin color. It's the mindset of thinking differently than the majority of people. And this is where a lot of people get upset. You get angry, you kick and cry and scream. But this is where you want to think different. Look for the opportunity, because it is there.
And rule number 10, the last one before some very special bonus clips, is stop being a pawn.
Most of us are taught just to be consumers. We're taught
Trade
to
time for money,
trade
go
time for
buy
money.
cool things to flex.
Exactly, and that's it. We're never taught to do anything else. And I mean, think about the last time your teachers taught you about the importance of investing your money.
They don't know how to do it either.
Exactly.
They couldn't hope to teach me.
And so that's where you have to be willing to go out of your way to learn how some of these things work. Because if you don't, you're just going to be a pawn in the system. And it's very unfortunate. It sucks. And you know, this is where I'm trying to help provide that education, because these are things I never grew up learning. These are things that I wish somebody would have told me. You know, I see it in so many people. I used to guest teach in Detroit public schools.
Whoa.
And you know, these are good kids from rough areas. A lot of times don't have two parents in the home. Sometimes don't even have a parent in the home. There were some kids he didn't have, or his mom is not around. He was raised by a gang just because there's no parents. And so they provided him shelter. And it's crazy because you get stuck into a system, a cycle, because you don't have any way of learning or seeing anything else. And you know, like one of the first times I was there, I asked the kids, how many of you guys have a job? Most of them raised their hand. Most of them have an income. And they're in high school, right? They're going to school and they're working. And next question is, how many of you have a bank account? Nobody. Not a single person had a bank account.
Jesus, man.
And so I was like, what do you do with your money? They said, we get a check, we go to the liquor store, we cash the check. Now the liquor store owner is going to take 1 to 10% of that check.
Oh God.
And then what are you going to do? You're going to buy candy, you're going to buy pop, you're going to buy a bunch of dumb stuff on your way out, and now you're left with only half of your check. And now what do you do? It's this, I like to call it net zero thinking, where if I have cash, I need to spend it. I have $500 in my bank account, I got to make that zero. If I have $1,000, I got to spend it. Because we think, oh my God, if I had 10 grand, I would go on this nice vacation. If I had 50 grand, I would buy this car. We think in terms of, it's that consumer mindset of, if I have this money, I need to spend it. But this is where we have to break out of that and understand, what can we do differently? And instead of just spending all of this money, and it's much more difficult now because of the higher cost of living, but it's so much more important now than ever, where you got to create this margin. I call it like an equation where your wealth is really, you take your income minus your expenses, and that's equal to your investments plus your savings. So you take your income, whatever money you make, you subtract your expenses, your houses, your home, your clothes, your car, whatever your expenses are. And if you have some money left, either this money is going to be saved or it's going to be invested. Well, if you have some money left, you're already, doing something that a lot of people are not doing. You're more than the majority of people. Right now, I just read a study yesterday. 7 out of 10 Americans across the board are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of Americans that are making $250,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck.
That's crazy.
It's not how much money you make. It's what you do with the money you make that is so important. And so now, if you have a buffer, you're already better than the majority of people. Now the question is, what do you do with it? Well, we're taught, save it. Save all of it. So your investments are zero, and your savings, you're trying to grow that, thinking that you're gonna become wealthy. But you're never gonna be able to outsave inflation. Your savings are literally making you poorer each and every day. However, you don't want to just not save any money. You got to be strategic with it. What I like to say is, there are 3 reasons why you should be saving money. You save money for an emergency, have somewhere between 3 to 12 months worth of expenses, depending on your risk tolerance. Save money for a big purchase. You want to buy a car, you want to buy a house, you need some cash to do that. Save money for an investment. If you're not saving money for one of these 3 reasons, you are saving your money the wrong way, and it's making you poorer each and every day. In between, I started a sock company. And when I was doing the sock business, this is when, you know, people started to be aware that I was an entrepreneur, and I wasn't like super successful. I was doing okay. And that's when I got on the news. But, you know, just think about this. I was supposed to be a doctor. Now here I am selling socks on the internet. And everybody is like, oh, so you left, you know, this idea of becoming a doctor. Now you're just selling socks. And, you know, hearing that for years, it's like, one day I'm going to have your kid want to work for me. And that was like in the back of my, I never said that, but I was like in the back of my mind, your kid's going to want to work for me one day. And it's like that driving force where I knew I'm going to prove this person wrong. I'm going to make this person like really like see that, hey, I am worthy. I can do something. But it takes a lot of work, you know, going back to that. But with anything, being willing to try, being willing to take risks, being willing to make mistakes, and being willing to learn from it. Because, you know, like I said, you know, for me, I was willing to be dumb or stupid. I never saw that risk until more recently, because for me, it was just like, I know this is what I want. And so the risk really was never even on my horizon. If I had a business idea, I would start it like that same night. Because for me, it was like, I want to do this. I want to figure it out. Books were kind of giving me an idea. My teachers weren't teaching me this. I don't know who to turn to. My experience was my teacher. That's how I learned how to be an entrepreneur, how I learned to start investing. That's when I started learning about money, because, you know, the whole issue with the money stuff, I mean, this is something that we're never, ever even remotely taught about. And it's now becoming a real pressing issue.
You have to be willing to try, learn, risk failure. You are going to fail. I always try to get people to understand that failure is the most information-rich data stream that exists.
Because you made it this far in a video, I want to celebrate you. Most people start and don't finish. Most people never actually follow through. Most people say they want something, but they don't ever do the work to actually get it. But you are different. You are special. Believe Nation, you made it here all the way to the end, and I love you. So as a special celebration, if you put a hashtag believe down in the comments below on this video, I will showcase you and celebrate you somewhere on the screen in a future video, because you are awesome.
For 10 more amazing rules from Jay Shetty, check the video right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and we'll see you there.
So don't let anyone's opinions stop you. Don't let anyone's criticism hold you back. Keep following your passions, invest in what you believe in. And remember, don't let people's compliments get to your head, and don't let their criticism